What's up, guys? Placido Santos here, and I have with me Five Stones Jiu-Jitsu student and defensive tactics instructor in the state of Massachusetts, Michael Vargas. Michael, thank you for joining us today. Guys, today Michael and I will be teaching knee pick within the context of law enforcement. So Michael, can you talk to us a little bit about how long you've been grappling and what your current roles are as a defensive tactics instructor?
Yeah, so I've been grappling for approximately 10 years, a little jiu-jitsu, a little bit of Muay Thai. I've been in law enforcement for around 13 years. I'm a defensive tactics instructor.
Yep.
And a use of force instructor also. I teach cops how to train.
Yep.
And I'm also a co-founder of the Mass PJJ team. Our main mission, our philosophy is to teach cops Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu how to stay safe and also promote confidence in law enforcement on how to keep the public safe and do our job right. Like, we have the power and authority to take someone's rights away. We should be able to do it safely and confidently.
So guys, Mike is currently, pretty much spearheading the Massachusetts Police Jiu-Jitsu organization. And as he said already, they're teaching a lot of the police officers here in Massachusetts how to do their job safely, efficiently, effectively. So I was picking Mike's brain a little bit right before this this video on some of the tactics that they're teaching police officers in today's day and age. Some really cool stuff. We're going to go into some of this stuff right now in this video. Okay, so before we even go into any of the technique, let's talk about basically some of the considerations that we want to have in mind when we're talking about grappling or combatives in the context of police work or first responder line of work. The first thing I want to talk about is the problem of high amplitude, right? So obviously when we're here on the mats, we have a very nice soft cushy surface, some places softer than others, and oftentimes it's hard to get a real sense for what would and would not work safely for not only the man being attacked, but also the attacker, right? So the person performing the technique, you have to take all of a sudden a new line of consideration into play, specifically the hardness of the floor that you're operating on. So as I said before, these mats, they're very soft, very cushy, very plush. When you step on asphalt, on concrete, it's completely different. And all of a sudden you have to be very careful with how you're throwing people. And specifically, it comes down to the knees and elbows. You would say this is true, Mike?
Yes, sir.
So a lot of times, if say you're in the line of work, Mike, you throw somebody too hard, what are maybe some fractures they can expect to see if you're throwing somebody too aggressively?
So if I throw someone to the ground aggressively or violently in a violent manner, I might be compromising myself to maybe injuring my hands, maybe landing on my hands, maybe fracturing a bone in my knee, or compromising myself in my position instead of relying on the control of being tactful while taking someone down.
So as Mike already said, obviously fractures they play a role in this, okay? And again, oftentimes in the sport of judo, we'll see beautiful throws done, and somebody might think like, oh, well, cops should learn that throw too. Well, perhaps yes, but if there is a lower amplitude version of that throw, then that's something that they should probably spend more time on, because again, as Mike already said, fractures become a big deal. If you throw somebody too hard, you can fracture an elbow, you can fracture knees, all sorts of different things, even your hand, okay? And that's, you need those body parts to work if you're involved in a fight for your life. Yeah. Second thing we want to talk about here real quick is the other reason you want to try to shy away from high amplitude takedowns is the problem of follow through or roll through. Remember that ultimately at the end of the day, Mike, I think you can attest to this, it's really not about throwing the person as much as it's about control, right? Control. So, at the end of the day, when you're interested in control is the primary thing, when you put somebody on the ground, you want to make sure you stay in a controlling position. So say, for example, a throw that would score very highly in, say, for example, a judo context or any other type of contest. The only reason I keep bringing up judo is because obviously judo has it's the primary throwing martial art. Say, for example, like an ogoshi, right, where I come through, I load Mike on my hips, we throw, both of us go down to the mat, my elbow lands first, and then I end up losing control. And my momentum, because I threw Mike so hard on the mat, I can actually end up getting rolled off of Mike and end up under Mike. And that's certainly not a situation you want to be in on the streets and when you're, obviously in a fight for your life, okay? So again, say for example, a throw like Ogoshi. Let's look at that one more time, Mike. I come in for Ogoshi. I step my hips square to Mike. First off, notice what's the first thing that makes contact with the mat. You might be tempted to think, oh, it's Mike. Mike's the first thing that makes contact with the mat. Look again. It's my elbow. So watch this. Let's face the camera, Mike. I load Michael up. Now watch my right elbow. Did you guys see that? So the first thing that made contact with the mat before even Michael made contact with the mat was my right elbow. That's my body weight and Michael's body weight, all focused on one small little point of my body, okay? That's not going to feel good. Secondly, and what I'm touching on right now, is this idea where if I throw you too hard, I'm going to end up on bottom. That's certainly not what you want, huh, Mike?
No, you got to pay attention. We have duty belts. In law enforcement, we wear duty belts. We have body armor. We have our mobility, and even our uniforms can be restrictive. So if I end up in maybe a 50-50 position or a scramble that we're maybe equal playing field, who's going to win that?
Yeah.
The bad guy maybe with no duty belt and no vest and maybe athletic wear.
That's a great point. So, I didn't even think about that, right? So obviously, duty belt can restrict mobility. I'm sure, like, when you have a duty belt on, you probably won't be able to bring your knees to chest as well, right? Because there's so much bulk here.
Especially with the body armor.
The vest in the body, yeah. So even more so, why we want to make sure we stay in dominant positions,
Yes.
right? So. Okay, second consideration we want to take into mind here when we're selecting what takedowns to teach for law enforcement is waistband exposure, right? So anytime you're engaged in a law enforcement context, Mike, talk to us a little bit of what are some of the tools that a person can expect a law enforcement officer to have around their waist?
So it depends on your setup. Well, most people have a duty belt, and we have a firearm, a baton, OC spray, a taser, and other tools that could the bad guy could have access to. So we have to be aware of what's on our belt and where the bad guy's hands go.
Sure. So obviously, as Michael was saying, like there's so much there that they can use to harm you, basically, right? 100%. And if they get access to it,
Or the public too.
Yeah, great point. So guys, obviously with that in mind, waistband exposure is a huge consideration when you're trying to select what takedown you're going to try to teach law enforcement officers. So say for example, any type of takedown where I'm in a double over situation, like say for example a lat drop. I'm not saying don't ever lat drop. I mean, if your life is on the line and you have a mean lat drop, maybe it's the time to. But again, any type of situation where Michael will have direct access to my waistband, probably not a good tactic to employ, Mike?
No, not at all.
So today's takedown that we're going to teach you, the knee pick, is an underhook dominant tie. Okay, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more later. But understand one of the main reasons we've selected this specific takedown to teach for law enforcement is because it is a tie that minimizes waistband exposure. Okay, the third and final consideration that we're taking into play here when looking to select what takedowns to teach law enforcement is low risk, high reward, right? Or essentially when it comes down to takedown selection, we want to make sure that we're selecting takedowns that you can throw volume at the person you're trying to subdue or control while not risking much, right? So understand on the jiu-jitsu match, when I'm here in front of one of my training partners and it's just a friendly roll, when you risk a lot in a friendly roll, the consequences aren't that dire. It's not the end of your life.
100%, life or death.
Exactly. On the line of duty, guys, it's life or death. Okay? So for that reason, Michael and I both agree, cops should be focusing more on low risk, high reward type takedowns. Because if they end up in a situation where the high risk, high reward takedown goes wrong, things can go really wrong. You might
End up on the bottom, losing a fight, or getting your tools taken away.
And as he already said, remember, for us jiu-jitsu guys, we might not understand, for us, what's the big deal of ending up on bottom? Just put them in guard, right? Well, as Mike already said, you have this duty belt that's very clunky and bulky already. So already one of the main functions or uses of a guard, which is knee to chest, is inhibited, right? It's hindered I can't get my knees to my chest the same way I used to be able to. Furthermore, you guys have a vest, right, and armor.
Yep.
Is that pretty heavy and bulky?
It's not heavy, but it restricts your crunching ability.
If there's one thing that will shut down or inhibit a person's guard, it's your ability to bring your knees to your chest and your shoulders in and hunch, okay? One of the main postures of a guard that gives a guard its power is the hunched posture, okay? This rocking chair motion, you'll probably hear Professor John talk about this a lot. This is one of the crucial aspects of a guard. The flatter and more open you are, the less effective your guard tends to be. The more closed and concave we are in this type of posture, the more effective your guard will tend to be. So for that reason, say for example, you have a police officer who ends up on bottom, not only does he have a giant duty belt with all sorts of tools that are preventing him from coming forward, but also a vest. That's poison to a guard. And it can make it much more challenging to scramble out of things. They might
100%, especially with the uniform. Depends on the uniform, it can restrict our mobility.
So for that reason, we want to make sure, as I said before, we're selecting takedowns, low risk, high reward. Why? Think about it. If I can take one big shot at Mike and risk a lot doing it, why do that when instead I can take 4 or 5 low risk shots at Mike and probably expect one of them to work, okay? It's just basically math via volume, right? The more volume I can keep throwing at Michael, the more chances I have of breaking through his resistance and being able to control him. Okay, so let's go ahead and start moving into more of the technique and tactic portion of this short crash course. First, let me just note that Mike and we're going to start from a very close position. We're going to start from a chest-to-chest over-under situation. Now, I know, obviously, a lot can happen for two people to end up in this type of scenario, okay? There's an entire art behind closing distance, especially closing distance in a law enforcement context. Because that is not the focus of this video, because I want to mainly teach you the knee pick takedown in a law enforcement context, we're not going to focus on that. We're going to bypass and skip that. And instead, we're going to go straight to a chest-to-chest situation where we're both in an over-under, right? So the over-under, as the name implies, is a situation where I have an underhook on one side, Michael has an underhook on one side, and I have an overhook on one side, and Michael has an overhook on one side, okay? Now, from the over-under situation, the first thing I want to talk about here is, as we mentioned before, is waistband exposure. Let's talk about waistband exposure, how we can deny waistband exposure on each side, and what happens if they do get to the waist eventually, okay? So, we're in an over-under situation. First thing we're going to go over is denying waistband exposure on the underhook side, right? So this is my underhook side, all right? My overhook side is my right hand, my underhook side is my left hand, all right? Now, on waistband exposure, how am I going to do this? Understand that the lower my elbow is, the easier Michael will be able to reach down and touch my waist. And if he can touch my waist, he can touch my weapon. If he can touch my weapon, we're in trouble, okay? What you want to do here as the underhook player is you want to keep elbow high. So the higher my elbow is, the harder it will be for Michael to reach my weapon on the underhook side, okay? Michael and I are both righties, so Michael, you would wear a weapon on the right-hand side,
yes,
correct? So, Michael would probably prefer to have an underhook with his right hand. Is that right?
Sure.
So let's go ahead and do that, Mike. So both Michael and I'm a righty too, so I would also carry a weapon on the right-hand side if I did. Obviously I don't, but if I did, I would carry on the right-hand side. So again, just to recap, on the underhook side, if my elbow is low, Michael will be able to reach my waistband. If my elbow, however, comes high, when Michael goes to reach my waistband, it's much more difficult. Understand that in order to achieve a high elbow, you want to have your hand flat on your opponent's back. There are many different types of underhooks, okay? The one you want to achieve a high elbow is a hand flat on the back, so your elbow can flare high. The hand works as an anchor on the back that allows me to flare my elbow. So now, as Michael goes to reach, it's very difficult for him to reach, okay? Now, obviously, let's ask the question, how do we deny waistband exposure on the overhook side? I'm going to allow Michael to teach that. Michael, can you take it away on the overhook side?
So if I end up having an overhook and he has the underhook and I want to switch the position and get the underhook. The hand that's overhook, I'm just gonna blade, create a little space. My chest is gonna come apart from his. I'm gonna drive my hand in with the blade, dig for that underhook under his arm.
He's in an underhook situation. So essentially the strategy, the tactic that Michael is using here is he's basically understanding anytime I'm in an overhook situation, there's waist exposure here, right? Michael can reach down, go ahead Mike, reach down, and touch my waist. That's kryptonite to us, okay? So instead, he's saying, listen, if I'm in an overhook situation, I'm just gonna change it to an underhook, and that's exactly what he's doing. Let's do it again, Mike. Blades, and he comes in, exactly. Now, let's ask the question real quick. Well, what happens if he's trying to turn his overhook into an underhook? I'm glad you asked the question. Let's look at that real quick. So, if I'm in an overhook situation, say for example, you're trying to control somebody, and he's trying to turn his overhook into an underhook. Go ahead, Mike. Understand the farther away my elbow is from my body, go ahead, Mike, the easier it's going to be for him to pommel inside. Because there's distance between my elbow and my body. So when my elbow is away from my body, Michael's pommel becomes easy. Go ahead, Mike. If, however, I feel him start to pommel, go ahead, and I draw my, go ahead, and I draw my elbow into my body, now when he goes to pommel an underhook, go ahead, it's very difficult, okay? So the way you seal an underhook pommel, go ahead, is to draw your elbow into your own body, like so. So now Michael's forced to abort mission because there's no more access on that side, and from there I flare my elbow again, okay? So once again, on the underhook side, what I'm looking to do is I'm looking to, number one, flare my elbow to keep him off my waist. Number two, if he tries to deny me my underhook, I draw my elbow to my body to deny him. As he goes back to his overhook position, I go back to a high elbow, okay? And on the overhook side, as Michael already noted, basically we're fighting for an underhook here. What I want to do is I want to blade my chest so I can create contact here. Off of this contact, I'm going to blade my hand to inside position. My hand goes flat on my back. I blade inside, and I shoot an underhook inside. And now that I have double unders, it's going to be very hard for him to access my waist. Okay, let's talk about real quick what happens if the person does get to the waistband. All right. So obviously, there's a lot of different tools that a police officer carries around their waist, military personnel, whatever the case may be. And among those tools, arguably one of the most prized, if not the most prized one, is the firearm because it has the greatest capacity to inflict harm on others, right? Or also to help us neutralize a bad situation, right? Us being police officers, obviously. So in this case, we're going to show from an over-under situation what to do if off the over-under, your opponent drops their underhook to your waistband, all right? So Mike and I are going to be in an over-under situation. Do you want this side or the other side, Mike? You want this side? Okay. Mike and I are going to be in an over-under situation, and from here, look, notice I have the underhook with my left hand. I can drop that to his waistband. So Mike, go ahead and teach us what happens when this occurs.
So if I feel him reaching for my weapon or getting a grip on my firearm, the first thing I want to do is secure that firearm in the holster. So most holsters, the mechanism to defeat is pulling the weapon upwards. So if I effect a release and pull up, the firearm might go with the arm, the hand. So the first thing I want to do is pin that hand into the holster. So I'm pinning it, and the second thing I want to do is kick my hips back to create an angle.
And now he has an underhook. So Mike, teach that to us one more time. Go ahead. So we're in an over-under situation. I managed to get my hand on your firearm.
Secure the firearm in the holster. Pressure down. Hips are going back as I create an angle and effective release.
And notice, guys, he has an underhook with his left arm here. So now my ability to get to any type of tool on his other side is very hard. Because his hand is controlling my wrist, it's very hard for me to get back to his firearm. Okay? And I want you to notice something here. Mike actually showed me this earlier today. If you're a police officer watching this video and you're thinking about what side to develop the knee pick on, develop it on the side that puts your firearm farthest away from your opponent. So in Michael's case, it's his left arm. Michael, in my opinion, and his opinion as well, should develop his knee pick more than anything else with his left arm. Why? because when his left arm is in, notice his firearm is farthest away from me. Whereas, say for example, if he switched sides, Michael carries his firearm. Michael would carry a firearm on the right-hand side. Notice my left hand can still reach down and touch the waist. Okay? Whereas, again, if he just switches that side, all of a sudden, that exposure that existed before the firearm is completely gone. Okay? So we're here in over-under situation. First things first, I reach. Notice how Michael takes my arm, he pins it down. Guys, I can't move my arm up here. I cannot. Mike, you said that if you pull it up and away, it can come out.
Yes, sir.
So obviously, if Mike pulls my arm up and away, it can come out with the pull. But Michael's pinning my arm here. And the second thing I want you guys to notice is, notice he's not using the strength of his arm, but the strength of his hips and his legs to break the grip. Right? So if both of us are, equal strength and size, or even worse, if I'm stronger than him, there might actually be a chance that he might not be able to break the grip with just his arm. But Michael's chances of being able to break the grip with his hips, with his legs, with his body weight on just one man's arm, even if the other man's stronger, I'm going to bet on the legs, the hips, the body weight winning that battle. Okay? Mike, teach it to us just one last time. So we're here in an over-under situation and how you access your firearm.
Feel him grabbing my firearm. I'm going to secure it into the holster by pinning it down. I'm not using my muscle to affect the release. I'm throwing my hips back and creating an angle. And that's as I drive downward.
Beautiful. Okay, real quick before we go into the knee pick, let's just look at real quick, what are the mechanics behind knee pick, okay? What am I looking for? Understand, just stand in a normal stance facing the camera, Michael. Good. When a human is standing in a normal stance, in a normal comfortable stance, the head is perfectly centered or perfectly balanced between the 2 feet, okay? The relationship of the head relative to your base of support, which is made up by the feet making contact with the ground, is what gives you basically your balance, your base of support, and all that type of jargon. Okay. If, say for example, I ask Michael to stand on 1 foot, go ahead, Michael. A foot is still his base of support. Okay. Now we've cut his base of support in half, but a foot is still his base of support. Notice how the head is perfectly lined up with the foot. Because the head is still perfectly lined and on top of the foot, he's in balance. Put another foot on the mat again. So again, if the head is inside the feet or on the foot, go ahead, he's in balance. The problem occurs when the head goes outside of the foot. So say for example, right now, just keep your head neutral. If Michael's head stays over his foot, he's fine. But the moment the head starts to travel outside the foot, he starts to lose balance, and that's when he's compromised. And that's the essential mechanic behind a knee pick. That's what you're doing when you knee pick somebody, is you're taking their head past their 1 foot, their base of support, and you're loading everything on that 1 foot, and then you're taking their head past that 1 foot and driving past it. So real quick, just so you can see this in application, right now Michael's head is perfectly balanced between both of his feet. He has very good balance in this situation. If, however, turn this way a little bit, I can manage to start compromising Michael's stance and then starting to take his head across his body. So right now the foot is more or less, his head is more or less over his foot. And now from here, take his head past that leg, which I'm going to essentially keep in place with my hand, because if I didn't, he would just simply step out. He'll fall, okay, because his head went outside his foot. That's the essential mechanic behind a knee pick, and that's what I'm going to be teaching you to do now. Okay, real quick, so now let's just get into the technique itself, now that we've been over a bunch of different principles and concepts, which, by the way, Michael and I thought were very important to include, just so that anybody watching this, whether you're a jiu-jitsu instructor who's teaching law enforcement, at military or first responders, whatever the case may be, or whether you're military, law enforcement, first responder yourself, you know what basically the why, okay? Because we can show you the how all day, but if you don't know the why, you can lose sight of the how, okay? So right now, let's go ahead and show you the knee pick. We're going to show you two types of knee picks. We're going to show you a linear knee pick, and then we're going to show you a circular finish to a knee pick. Let's go over the linear knee pick first. Mike and I are going to be in over-under situation. So first thing we're going to do is I'm going to get myself to an asymmetrical tie. Right now we're in a symmetrical tie, meaning both of us have the exact same tie on each other. This isn't where we want to be. I want to be in a situation where the battle is not 50-50. I want to make the battle 90-10. I want to stack the odds in my favor, okay? So we're here in an over-under situation. What I'm going to do from here, I'm going to take my hand back. I'm going to post, keep it tight, underhook right there, Mike. I'm going to post my thumb inside of Mike's elbow, like so. And I'm going to pump. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, until his hand comes off my body. Don't try to take it all off at once. Hold tight, Mike. Don't try to be this guy. Then you try to take it all off at once. It's not going to happen. You have to chip away at it. So we're here. We're both jousting and fighting with each other. I'm going to reach up, put my thumb inside of his elbow. Now from here, I'm going to pump. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I take his hand off. The moment I take his hand off, you can either stay at the elbow or come to the wrist. Both are good and both have their pros and cons. Okay? Now, I'm going to wrist and underhook. From here, I now have to start to load Mike for the takedown. If I try to go for a knee pick from here, Michael is in a perfect situation to just deny me. Okay, if I just let go and I try to knee pick, exactly, he's going to step back and out. It's just not going to work. So what I'm going to do from here is I'm going to circle out and away to start to load weight on this foot and bring him perpendicular to me, like so. This is the situation you want to be in. Understand, I'm in a perfect situation facing my target. I'm facing the leg that I want to attack. I'm perpendicular with him. When Mike and I are square with each other, it's very hard to hit knee picks with off square situations where both of our feet are facing each other. My ability to hit a knee pick and drive across my body is very poor here. But if I simply take the time to make us perpendicular with one another by stepping out and away, now we're perpendicular. Notice I'm facing this way. Mike's facing that way. We're forming a cross with each other. Now my ability to start driving across his body is very strong. And notice what I'm doing here is I'm taking my elbow high, and as I drive and step across his body, my high elbow, I reach down to the knee, ergo the name knee pick. And I walk past his base of support as I place him down on the mat, and I stay standing from here. And then from here you can obviously choose whether to change level and start to try to control the person on the ground, or stay standing because you felt the need to. All right, let's look at this again. Linear knee pick, this time from this angle. We're in an over-under situation. From here, I'm going to take my thumb inside post. I'm going to pump 1, 2, 3, 4. Take his hand off, okay? Now, if I go for the knee pick from here, it's going to be a very poor result probably. My ability to attack Mike with a knee pick from this situation is not great. Michael, if I even try to reach for the knee, he'll just take it back and away. Exactly. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to step back and away from the foot I don't want to attack. That's going to weigh this leg. Did you guys notice how that leg stayed in place? Now, I'm perpendicular with Michael. Michael's facing that way. I'm facing directly ahead. From here, I'm facing the limb I want to attack, the leg. So now, as I start to drive across, my elbow will go high, my hand will go to the knee, and my feet will walk forward. 1, 2, 3, and he goes down. Okay? And again, the beauty of a knee pick is that it's a low risk, low amplitude for me takedown. You know, there was no amplitude of anything on me. I'm still standing. And I can choose whether I drop level and start to control on the ground, or whether I stay up and away, because for some reason I felt the need in the situation to stay standing. Okay? That's why I love this takedown so much for law enforcement, military, first responder. Mike, you'd agree?
Yeah.
So one last time, then the next clip, Mike and I are going to go into a circular finish. One more time. Mike and I in our over-under situation. From here, I fight Mike's hand off, and I control the wrist. He's trying to reach for me with that wrist. It's going to be very hard. He tries to reach for my waistband on the other side. I keep my elbow flared. Okay, again, if my elbow's low, he'll reach. If my elbow's flared, go. Very hard for him to get there. Now from here, I start to load the knee pick by getting us perpendicular to each other. How do I do that? I run away from the far leg. Now from here, I start to run forward as I pick the knee, put him down on the ground, I stay standing, or I can change level and start to control. Okay guys, so as I said, teaching two main finishes to the knee pick. The first one we taught was a linear knee pick, where we got our opponent to the perpendicular position, and then from there we went for our finish. The second knee pick is also very important to learn because it's one that you can finish the opponent even when he brings his leg out and away. So obviously sometimes when you go to reach for that leg, they're going to start to sprawl that leg out and away. This knee pick works even against the sprawling leg, right? So the person's taking their leg out and away because they want to widen their base, okay? Again, remember, the head being in between and inside the feet or over a foot will maintain balance, right? Uchimata, my head stays over my foot. And I can throw a person, right? As long as my head stays over my foot. Or if my head is between my feet. The moment your head starts to go outside your feet, problems begin to occur. So again, I know this. Mike, come here real quick. Mike reaches for my leg, I'm going to step it out and away, okay? Even if I don't break contact, I'm still going to try to step out and away. He's going to feel this resistance, okay? So right now, Mike's going to teach us a circular finish off of, I'm going to go for the holster. I'm going to go for the holster, and I'm going to go right from there, okay? Over, under. Go ahead, Mike. Beautiful, very nice. Go ahead, walk us through it, Mike, real quick.
So I feel him grabbing my firearm, secure the gun in the holster, effective release. His knee's right there. I'm going to C-clamp the back of his knee. I feel him trying to kick out and sprawl out. As he's doing that, I'm going to circle to his back.
Beautiful. Very nice. Do it again, Mike.
Secure the firearm in the holster. Effective release. Grab the back of his knee with the C-clamp. He's going to try sprawling out. As I feel that, that should be an indication to start going towards his back and circle out. Circle out, high elbow.
Beautiful. If any of you guys are wrestling fans, the great freestyle wrestler Hassan Yazdani is very good at this finish. You know, he's an underhook master, knee pick master, very good linear finishes, very good circular finishes. But if you have any questions about whether or not this technique would work at a high level, look no further than Yazdani, who's, I think, an Olympic champion, definitely a world champion. And he's gone toe-to-toe with the biggest names in the sport and beat a lot of the biggest names in the sport. So the circular finish is a very legitimate finish. Let's go over it one more time. So as Michael already noted, when he grabs my leg, right, I can get that leg out and away. But he's overcoming that resistance by circling out and around me. Okay? So again, we're here. Go ahead, Mike, real quick. Notice how right here, when he grips my leg, if Mike tries to go linear, try to go linear. You feel that resistance, don't you? Okay? So this is the time to hit circular. So right now, Michael's arm is extended. If Michael could get to a situation where his arm was retracted, yeah, this is very strong. He'll be able to simply walk past me and put me right down. However, life's not that simple. Sometimes you're going to get a great grip. Sometimes you're going to get not the best grip in the world. Okay? One of the signs of a grip that's not the best grip in the world is an extended arm. Okay? An extended arm is not the best grip in the world. And from here, Mike may feel me start to resist by bringing my foot out and away. Okay? So again, if Michael tries to finish linear from here, it's very hard. All Michael has to do is keep the same grip and now start to circle his feet out and behind me and watch how it works like magic. Okay? We're just like that. The exact same grip, exact same underhook position that he was using before that was failing against a sprawling leg, all of a sudden, by just switching his motion, the way his feet are moving, starts to work like magic. The circular finish. Alright guys, thanks for watching the video. If you liked it, make sure to like, subscribe. Leave a comment if you like this type of content. I'll make sure to make more of it if I see that enough of you like it. Also, I just wanted to say thank you to Mike for being here. Michael, thank you so much.
Thank you.
His knowledge was very valuable to me. Right before this video, I was picking his brain on a bunch of different things. Brought up a lot of really good points. Thanks so much, Mike. Mike, where can people find out more about Mass BJJ?
So the Mass PGA team, we're on Instagram, Mass PJJ team on
That's
Instagram.
P, not B.
P.
Yeah, as in police.
Yes.
Yes.
And then masspjjteam.com for our website if you want to buy some gear and just special thanks to our co-founders Scott LaPointe and Casey Lamont. We created this. It's really successful and we're getting cops to train. So that's our main mission and our priority.
That's awesome. How can, so the main ways for people to support is to follow you on Instagram,
Yes, sir.
follow you on Facebook,
Yep.
which is Mass P, the letter P, JJ, correct?
Yes.
And then also to buy gear online?
Yeah, we have rash guards, hoodies, a bunch of gear, Origin custom rash guards. They're nice, so check them out.
I'll put the link in the description. So
Yes,
guys, I'll go ahead and I'll put the Mass PJJ gear link in the description. I'll put the Instagram, I'll put the Facebook so you guys can follow them. I'm wearing an Origin rash guard right now for Mass PJJ. Super comfortable. I love it. Thanks so much, Mike.
Thanks, Kevin.